It is Good News Friday, and of course, the co-host for Good News Friday is none other than Larry Goldberg. Larry, so glad always to have you here to help me share the good news.
Thanks very much, Randy. And I'm speaking from a friend's apartment in New York City. We're here because my wife has a exhibition on, and so we're pretty excited to be here. We drove the Tesla up here, and we'll be driving back in the Tesla.
All right, and unfortunately, good news. Your wife has an exhibition, and I'm sure that's something that you're all excited about. But I understand you're a little sad that you won't be down in Texas tomorrow.
Man, I can't tell you how rough that's going to be for me. I mean, I support my wife's exhibitions, and we've been all over the country with them. But just I thought it was this happened suddenly that they
Yeah.
got the approval. Just less than 3 weeks ago, we heard that they might be happening, and 2 weeks ago, we heard it was going to happen. And we had this exhibition planned some months ago, and I didn't think for a moment it would conflict, but there you are. You got to do what you got to do. And I am so heart sore.
I'm sure. So, and I understand that I'm going to have to get up at 5 a.m. on a Saturday. That if I want to watch the launch. So, oh well, but I'll be doing that for sure.
I think the window opens at 6, doesn't it? Or does it open at 5?
I think they said 7, and I assumed Texas time on the thing that I saw. So if it's 7
you're right.
this time, it'd be 5 a.m.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot where you are. I forgot where you're sitting. I'm gonna be here in the East Coast, so
yeah,
a little bit easier for me.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, let's dig into some stuff. I think the number one news item of the day right now is Sam Altman. That was a big shock. So for those of you who don't know, Sam Altman was summarily dismissed. I mean, this was not apparently a resignation. He was dismissed with prejudice. The commentary, something to the effect of, we couldn't trust his word anymore. Larry, what do you think's going on there?
I don't think I can recall such a thing happening. I mean, in a major, I just, when you consider the success of that company, of that organization, I'm not sure it's a company, in the last 3 or 4 years, and certainly the last year and a half, it's staggering that they should, exit with such prejudice their CEO. When you consider the release of ChatGPT, the deal with Microsoft, the money that they've raised, the success they're having in the marketplace, the rate at which they're launching product, it is staggering. And then to just boot him off the board, it's just very strange. Now, I will say that, Elon hasn't had a lot of good things to say about Sam.
Except he said he wouldn't mind having him back as a friend.
That's true. And, it's just very hard to understand. And, when the board does something like this with a company in that strategic posture, it's taking a huge risk.
Yeah.
And so there's something going on. This is the first shoe, and I think there's another shoe going to drop. So we'll see.
Microsoft, their stock dropped like a rock on the news.
And rightly so. So we just don't know what's happening. I mean, I was on a call this morning, on a technical call, and people were singing the praises of ChatGPT 5 that's coming, and it's coming at an incredibly rapid rate, and all the stuff Microsoft's doing with Copilot, and and there was none of this, and it just hit like instantly So we're going to see something. We're going to see another shoe drop. It's pretty serious. And, I'm not sure what the future brings, but, when you consider what Sam did to Elon, I don't know.
Oh no, yeah, isn't that the truth? All right, well, let's, as long as we're going to be talk about controversial subjects, let's dig into the most controversial subject of the day. And Larry, the fact is you are Jewish, so you can bring
And proudly so.
and probably so, with family in Israel, and in addition, and multiple trips to Israel, and owned a company in Israel for a bit. Did you consider the Elon Musk's statement yesterday? Oh, and by the way, Ann, would you also say you're a classic liberal? Slightly.
I'm a classic liberal. Right. My background and upbringing was not different from Elon's.
Yeah. South Africa.
Both of us were born in South Africa to progressive parents who supported the Progressive Party, who were very opposed to the National Party, the Apartheid Party, who both left the country, under very similar circumstances, not wanting to support the apartheid regime. So, and so what we learned at school was classic liberalism, absolutely, liberalism
some people call it JFK school.
Well, JFK was the reason I came to the United States.
Oh, I see.
I mean, I can still to this day recite his first inaugural address.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
And I would read about him in Time magazine every week at school when I was a schoolboy, and I was just burning with this, desire to be an American. And so on my own and without any help from my school or family, I went to research in the American Embassy. One weekend I got away from school. I was in a boarding school. I got a pass and went on a Friday morning to the American Embassy and sat and read through pages and pages and pages of scholarship. Well, there weren't scholarships available for high school, for first year college. But what I did find was the American Field Service Scholarship, which is a repeat of a high school year in an American family. And I applied and I won that scholarship and came to the United States first time in 63, 64. And I've been an American, born and bred American in the Kennedy School.
All right. So asking this question, set it up that you are a classic liberal and you're Jewish. Did you think that Elon Musk yesterday recited, repeated, or in any way did something that was a Jewish trope?
Not at all. I mean, the Anti-Defamation League, ADL, was for many years our go-to organization when we felt that a slur or some sort of public bad had been done to Jewish people. But in modern times, the liberal left has veered from the classic course of liberalism, and so has academia. And what's crept into it is a very, very different form of liberalism, which which is far left of what socialism ever was, and veers to the extreme left. Or the extreme right. It's where the right and the left meet.
Yeah.
And it's really a horrendous mishmash of invented ideology or ideology of choice to achieve a certain outcome.
Yeah.
Which I suppose all ideologies are. And so I have become very, very disappointed with the ADL. In fact, I would never provide them any support or funding, which I freely did in the early years. And I feel very strongly aligned with Elon in his view of the ADL.
Yeah.
And the ADL have been very damaging to Elon, very damaging.
Yeah.
And I am absolutely aligned with him on this. Now, having said that, he reacted to that tweet without doing the research on the guy who tweeted it. And I will stipulate, neither did I. I haven't looked into his background. I mean, people say he's an anti-Semite. I mean, maybe, but I've learned not to take anybody's word anymore, particularly on Twitter or any social media, by the way.
Yeah.
Because I am very opposed to this woke revolution or this woke business, and so I wear that badge openly, and so I understand why he tweeted what he did based upon that tweet. Now, would I have investigated that guy's background before responding to it? Probably, because if I don't know the person, before I respond to their tweets, I generally, go to their profile and read what they have to say, and that often tells me, look, this is a danger zone. Let's not go there. I wish Elon had done that, because that's what I fault him for. Yeah. And I don't have any problems criticizing him, because he's just like us, human, makes mistakes, and I think it's a big mistake.
Yeah, there is a famous saying, I guess, if you will. Actually, I think it's biblical, that with great power comes great responsibility. And I think Elon has maybe more power than the president of the United States at this point in some very serious ways. That means he has greater responsibility to think through what he's going to say. And I fault him for that. It's not the first time. It's not a shock. I didn't go, oh my gosh, this is so out of character. But I think maybe at some point it'd be good if he would kind of take a lesson. He's not perfect. None of us are, but it'd be good if he could take a lesson. In the meantime, the White House decided they had to get involved. They love Elon so much. They would, if this was the opposite, and it was some Democrat who had made an anti-Semitic statement, like so many have done in the last couple of weeks, the White House would not and has not been commenting on those statements.
Yeah, where were they? Where were they in the last couple of weeks? In some of the statements, some members of Congress.
Right.
Not to be seen, not to be heard. But when Elon does, then they're seen to be heard. They're seen and heard, and it's very unfortunate. And this White House with this president should tread very carefully. The president is no longer a young man.
Right.
And I speak as a man who's, just a couple of years younger than he is. This is a really, really awkward time for him. Yeah. And he doesn't help himself. He doesn't help himself by appealing to some form of base by making these remarks, in my view.
Right. So switching away from things of great controversy to things of controversy, but lesser controversy, the big deal that some on Twitter or X have been concerned about, besides Elon's character or Elon's decisions for the last couple of years, has been the issue of advertising. And so finally, Elon said, yep, okay. About a year ago, he said, look, we're going to start doing some advertising. He started out with some pay-per-click on Google, and they've apparently been expanding that fairly rapidly to more and more pay-per-click. So that must be doing some good. And now we've got the first two YouTube commercials, which yours truly put out an entire program a couple of weeks ago saying, I think what they should do is YouTube. So what do you think? YouTube a good way to go? Have you seen the commercials yet?
I have not seen the commercials. I have a very pointed perspective on what should be in those commercials. I'm interested to see if they follow, what would be my recipe. I mean, So I'm in a very bad position because I haven't seen them.
So the
I've been
first one,
traveling and
the
yeah,
first
go ahead.
one, yeah, the first one was on safety. Now remember, these are actually commercials on YouTube. So they're not YouTube programs or YouTube
Right.
videos. They are commercials that are running before somebody else's YouTube product. And so the first one was on safety. It was a little bit oblique, Larry. It wasn't like, didn't catch your attention and drive home, but it said, we're the safest car out there, and here's some reasons why. And there was a nice crash from a crash test in the beginning to get your attention real quick, which is what's really critical on YouTube. But the second one, and some people were a little critical of the first one. The second one, the best-selling car in the world starts at $399 a month. I thought that was a very good theme for the second commercial. So they'll get some right and some wrong, but they're out there.
Look, those guys who are doing those ads, I would trust them more than I would trust my own judgment on ads.
Well, there is that. I mean, mine too, and I've been doing it my whole life.
Well, I would trust you more than I would trust me because that's not my skill set. I've opined at great length, as I do, as one does, on what they should or shouldn't do, but it's really not my strong suit. I'm just glad that they've started, but I think they have a long way to go.
So then we have, since this is the year that the union has been raising its mane or something, I don't know. I have to think of a good way to say it.
Raising its flag.
Raising its flag in the United States, well, also in Sweden. So I haven't even reported on this. This is the first time I'm going to report on it. The Swedish union started off just saying, "Hey, come on, would you guys please join our union? Let our people be part of the union." And Elon said no, or Tesla said no, and they said, "Well, okay, then we're gonna talk to the union members and see if we can get them to walk out." Well, the union members said, "No, we love working here. This is a great job, pays well. We're not going to walk out." So then they went off.
Wait a minute, you've lost me there.
Oh,
you said that they talked to the union members. Don't you mean the Tesla employees?
Their employees, yes, they talked to their employees, and the employees and the press came in and asked the employees, and the employees said, "Hey, we like working here, plenty good money. We're not going to walk off." I guess out of 160 or something, there was a handful that said that they would strike, but it wasn't enough to get anything going. So then the union goes out and tries to stop them from getting the imported cars from whether they were from Berlin or from China, getting the imported cars unloaded at the port. And now they've ratcheted it up. None of this is working. So they are now asking a company that supplies Tesla in Sweden to not ship the needed part, which could shut down the entire operation in Berlin. So thoughts on this effort by the Swedish union?
I'll say this. If you're a supplier of Tesla and your union or you decide not to supply Tesla, you're being very foolish. The supply chain is such that, the Swedish company is not going to be the only one supplying Tesla, and it will be a huge loss to them if they lose that business. And trust me, they may be a sole supplier, but Tesla will find the solution to that supply. Trust me. Yeah. So if this is supposed to be the year of the union, I'm not overwhelmed yet by it. I don't see this as a threat. I'm sure Tesla have the means to overcome this threat. But unions, they have a raison d'etre, and they're going to, keep doing what they do. But yes. I don't think that Tesla's imperiled.
Yeah, I think you're right. Years ago, Larry, in my factory, I had an employee who, he wasn't even an employee, he's a contract laborer, but anyway, he left and he tried to undermine my ability to make my main product. And it required tooling It required specialized equipment to manufacture. It was an extruded product, so you had to have an extruder of a certain size. I was back manufacturing the product within 5 days. So, so I don't know if this part could be back up in manufacturing in 5 days, but most products, if you really put the pedal to the metal, you can find a way.
Well, they have those parts sitting in China, and they have those parts sitting in the US. So at worst, they'll put a 3-month supply onto an airplane, fly it there, and then in that time they'll move the manufacturing to Poland. I mean, what the hell?
That's right. That's right.
Seriously, I mean, Sweden is not a low-cost producer.
No, that's a fact. So, Larry, the stock market today, we have Tesla up 71 during the regular hours, down 42 in the after hours.
You're talking cents, not dollars, I take it.
I'm talking about cents, yes. With Tesla, it could be dollars. Anyway, but so overall for the day, outperforming on a Friday before a weekend heading into a short week.
Right.
So this is interesting that the sell-off appears to be off or done with regard, apparently, anyway. It was down early on and then recovered. So overall,
during the day, there was a Federal Reserve governor who said, if we have to increase the interest rates again, we will increase the interest rates again. And these people have got no bloody sense at all. I mean, we're sitting on the knife edge of a recession. They've gone too far already. We're going to taste the bitter pill of all of this, early in the first quarter next year. Hopefully we escape a recession, and interest rates come down a little bit, and the Federal Reserve does bend a little bit. But it's crazy what this Federal Reserve is doing. It's crazy what they have done. It's crazy what they're doing now.
Did you see that Walmart echoed Costco and said they see deflation ahead? Not disinflation, deflation.
Deflation, yes.
So, I mean, we get those two, Costco and Walmart, agreeing that deflation is ahead. I mean, these people have information at their fingertips that maybe even the Fed doesn't have at their fingertips quite in the same way. And they're both saying deflation.
I'd love to hear what Amazon have to opine. And, I will tell you one thing. There may be deflation coming in Walmart, and there may be deflation coming in Costco. But there's no deflation coming in parking in New York. Holy moly. Parking in New York, my word.
Well, I said today, I did a big program earlier today, Larry, which I'll put a card up for right here somewhere. Anyway, I did a program earlier today talking about the ongoing bull, that the bull is in place. It's going to just keep going now. We're fine. Inflation is behind us, but there's 4 categories that anybody that thinks that deflation is going to go away in these 4 categories is out of their mind. Owned homes or owned residential, that's going to continue. It'll go down a little bit over the winter, as it always does, but then it'll pick up in the spring, especially if interest rates come down. What do you call it? Airplane the cost of flying. It's not going to come. It might disinflate a little bit, but it's not going to come back down again. Hotel rooms, New York parking would be not on the list, but it would be an example of that. And eating out. These are categories where they're just going to continue to spend in those categories. And maybe there'll be a little resistance at some point and the prices will stabilize back down a little from these massive highs, but we're not going to be talking about going anywhere close to where these numbers were, at least for a year or so.
You're probably right. Yeah. I mean, I think that's a good pick.
Yeah. So
I mean, I every morning I wake up hoping the Reserve Bank is going to say sorry, but hasn't happened yet.
I did give you a a big high on that program earlier today, because I did mention your continued and my continued concern about the money supply. I'm more concerned about the money supply than I am about the timing of the first reduction in the interest rate. So I would rather the Fed would come out in the January meeting and say, okay, we've stopped quantitative tightening. Maybe they don't start the easing yet, but at least stop the tightening, and that they're looking for ways to ease the money supply a little bit.
Yeah. Well, time will tell. I mean, I didn't look at velocity this week, but it doesn't change that rapidly. And as long as velocity is this low, doesn't really matter how much they pump the money supply. If people don't turn that money over, it's not going to result in inflation.
Yep. Well, Larry, those were the subjects I had in mind for today. Other than just as I always do, I take a quick look at the end. We've got the there's no pre-market, of course, today. So we're looking at crypto ending at Bitcoin ending at 36.5. Apparently, all this fluctuation up and down is all about the ETF. And so whenever the ETF is either approved or not approved, that's when we'll find out where they're going to settle.
You know, Kathy disagrees with you on that.
Oh, she does.
Yeah, Kathy, you know, in general, the ARC research is indicative of a longer term upward trend.
Right.
And they feel that this is the first leg up. And they disagree with you about it being all ETF related. But I just mentioned that. Time will tell.
I can tell you this much for sure is how much I know about Bitcoin. So I'm only remarking regarding headlines I see.
Yeah, well, and to be honest, you know, Bitcoin is that new and that untested that I think everybody is rough in the same position, and we're all guessing.
So then on the dollar had a soft week, but that would be expected when you've got the treasury dropping as much as it did in a single week. By the way, were you on the show with me when we discovered that the inflation drop over the last 12 months is the fastest drop in the rate of inflation in history?
No, I wasn't with you, but I actually came across that statistic. When was it? Actually, it may have been, it was before I left North Carolina. I saw that, and I was going to measure that against what happened in '83. Be interesting to compare the drop rate in '83 compared to today.
Yeah. So, but anyway, monumental, historic drop, even if they're comparable. Gold ended up at 1983. It's been trading in a range from about 1780 to 2020, something in that range. And so it's kind of in the middle of that range right now. But again, so much dependent on the dollar. What else do you think would be causing it to at least be in the upper parts of its range right now?
You know, I think there's a flight to safety just because of uncertainty. And so I think the more uncertainty there is, the higher it's going to creep up in its range. People say that Bitcoin is the new gold. I think gold is the new gold.
Yeah.
So I think that it definitely is a hedge, a safety hedge. And I think that as long as there's uncertainty in the world, people are going to bid it up. It's not at its historic high, but it's not low.
Right. Definitely not low at this point. And then oil up 3%, up 4% today to 75.84, still well in the bottom part of its recent range.
Yeah.
I was hoping it was going to go into the 60s, Larry, but at least it had a little bump today.
Yeah, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to get it down to the 60s in the middle of a war.
That may be
but it could happen. Could happen.
Yeah. And then finally, the bonds. Whoops, here we go. The bonds. So ended the day at 4.439 on the 10-year. So less than 20 basis points away from my 4.25.
And copper.
And copper. See, I don't have copper on this. Yeah, I can get copper, Larry.
Well, we don't need it today, but we should track copper in the future.
I have been doing ever since, Larry. I've been trying to. So we got copper. Just a second here. Darn it. We have got. No, that's not how you're going to get it, Randy. Well, I may be in trouble, not be able to get it as quickly as I'd like. Darn it. Anyway,
that's all right.
Copper, you know, all week it's been low, Larry. It's very, very close to like a 10-year low.
You know, copper is really the canary in the coal mine.
Okay, well, we will watch
it. You know, it's called, I think, what is it called? It's called the commodity with the PhD in economics.
Right.
Because it's very indicative of economic activity. And so when copper is low, it indicates that global economic activity is on the decline.
Yeah, well, of course, we saw there just within the last couple of years, people going to jail because they were stealing copper out of buildings and utilities and whatnot. So, yeah, and that I don't hear that anymore with these low prices that we have right now. Larry, I think that wraps for today. Thank you so much for being the co-host of the Good News Friday, and we'll look forward to seeing you again as the co-host of Good News Monday.
Look forward, Andy. Look forward, Randy.
Okay. All right. And to all of you out there, it's been great talking to you.